I'm Diane, Teen Services Librarian at the Poudre River Public Library District, and I'm here today to tell you about the Teen Summer Reading Program at the library, and also to share some information about some good books with you that you might find useful to read this summer. First, I'd like to share with you about the Summer Reading Program. This year, the theme is called You Are Here, and when you sign up for the program, you will receive a passport that has a reading log on the inside. And the inside includes little boxes where you can keep track of your reading time, and also a place where you can list the books that you have been reading. The programs that will be offered for teens in grades 6 to 12 at the library this summer are listed on the back of your passport. So feel free to stop by and pick up one of these and start reading this summer. And now I'd like to share some information with you about some books that you might find fun to read this summer. I tried to pick a variety of books, many different kinds of titles and characters, so hopefully you'll hear about one or two or maybe more books that you will enjoy reading this summer. The first one is called Stolen by Lucy Christopher. Gemma is in the Bangkok airport with her parents, and they're on their way for a vacation in Vietnam. They're switching planes, and her parents have gone ahead to the gate. Gemma says she's going to stay behind so she can stop and get some coffee. While she's there at the booth, a man comes up and begins talking to her and offers to pay for her coffee. As she goes to her table, he strikes up a conversation with her, and the next thing she knows, she's feeling extremely dizzy, and she blacks out. She begins to move in a fog, not realizing what's happening or where she's going or what she's doing, until she completely blacks out. When she wakes up, she's in an unfamiliar room, in a strange house, but most importantly, she soon realizes that she's also in a strange place. Somehow, some way, she's been taken to the Australian outback. She's in a cabin, hundreds of miles from civilization with no means of escape. How did Ty get her here, and why did he do it? Little by little, Gemma learns the bizarre truth about why she was stolen in the book by Lucy Christopher. The next book is called Woods Runner by Gary Paulsen. You might recognize Paulsen's name from his most famous book, Hatchet. Hatchet was a survival in the wilderness story, and you'll find elements of survival wilderness in this book as well. But if you're a historical fiction fan, you'll enjoy this book too. It takes place in the year 1776 at the time of the American Revolutionary War, and Samuel is a woods runner. He's 13 years old, and he carries a 40 caliber flintlock rifle, wears buckskin clothing, and moves stealthily through the forest. Even though Samuel knows the forest can be deadly, he still loves it. And his skill at hunting means he's responsible for providing meat for nearly the whole Pennsylvania frontier settlement where he and his parents live. One day, he's hunting bear deep in the forest, 4 or 5 ridges from the settlement, when he notices smoke across the tops of the distant trees. It couldn't be a forest fire because it hadn't been dry enough. It seems to be coming from the settlement itself, and that would mean only one thing: an attack. Samuel turns and starts running the 8 miles back home. He catches the smell of blood before he even sees the settlement. It's only been a week since Samuel and the other settlers had seen the flyer telling about the fighting between local farmers and the British troops at Lexington and Concord. Now the flyer's meaning is crystal clear. There have been vicious British attacks on many settlements, and his settlement has become one of them. All the cabins have been burned to the ground, and most of the settlers are dead. But Samuel can't find his parents anywhere. Their bodies just can't be found, and for some reason, he realizes soon enough that they are not dead, but have been taken captive. Samuel knows he has to follow the killer's tracks and get them back. It won't be easy, and his life will be in danger, but he's a woods runner, and he is going to try. And if you like fantasy, you'll enjoy this book, Mistwood by Leah Sipos. Isabel lives in the magic land of Mistwood. She's a shifter who can change into animal form, into wind, into mist. She's an immortal creature bound by an ancient spell to protect the kings of Simorna. When the kingdom is peaceful, she retreats to Mistwood, and she can't remember anything that's happened in the past. But when she's summoned, she always comes, remembering nothing, before Prince Rokan rides into her forest one day and places a magical bracelet on her arm and takes her back to the castle. He wants Isabel to be his shifter. He needs her ability to shift into other forms, her lethal speed and her superhuman strength to protect him from those who might stand in the way of him becoming king. Most of all, he needs her loyalty, because without it, she may be his greatest threat. Isabel knows that for some reason, her prince is lying to her, but still, she wants to protect him from the dangers of the court, until a deadly truth shatters the bond between them, and Isabel must figure out who the real enemies are and her real place in the world. In Mistwood by Leah Sipos. And this is a kind of strange contemporary fiction story called Bruiser by Neal Schusterman. When Tennyson's twin sister Bronte starts dating Brewster, nicknamed the Bruiser, the guy voted by their classmates as the one most likely to go to jail. He can't believe it. He's pretty angry about it at first. But when Tennyson gets to know Bruiser better and Bronte falls in love with him, they learn some new things about him. He's really kind-hearted, and he even likes poetry. But slowly they begin to learn something else about him too. Their cuts and scrapes heal unnaturally fast when the Bruiser is around. A twisted ankle miraculously gets better, and bruises disappear right before their eyes. The Bruiser has some sort of strange powers they don't understand, and at first they're very glad for what he can do for them, until they realize the terrible truth behind these powers is much more than they bargained for. In the book by Neal Schusterman. And this is Winter's End by Jean-Claude Morlevat. Now, if you've read the book The Hunger Games and its sequels, Catching Fire and Mockingjay, you've probably longed for another title that would satisfy you like those books did. Well, this book might just do the trick. Did you ever joke about school being like jail? Now, maybe you didn't, but you might have heard other kids at school talk about school that way. But what if your school actually was a prison? A prison with icy dormitories and long, grueling winters, where teachers don't really teach at all. And even the amount of light allowed from unshaded light bulbs is regulated. In Winter's End, kids whose parents died or mysteriously disappeared under the rule of the evil government, the Phalange, end up in a so-called boarding school that is really more like a prison. The Phalange totally runs their lives, and each student gets only 3 visits a year with a person appointed to be their counselor. It's sort of like a surrogate parent. No one dares to try to escape, fearing the same fate as their real parents, death. That is until 4 brave teenagers, Helena, Milena, Milos, and Bart, devise a dangerous plan to get away, to find a way to escape and reach the members of the resistance who are trying to overthrow the Phalange. It's a perilous mission filled with terrifying creatures called dogmen who kill on command, barbaric fights to the death between captives in the arena, and the threat of being arrested at every turn. Will the teens meet the fate of their parents, or will the resistance succeed? Find out by reading Winter's End by Jean-Claude Morlevat. This book is called Sorta Like a Rock Star by Matthew Quick. Have you ever heard the expression, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade? It means that even if things are sour and not going well, to look on the bright side. Well, 17-year-old Amber Appleton has been given plenty of lemons in her life, and so far she hasn't let it get to her. She's quirky, she's hip, and she tries to be happy even though she and her mom are homeless, living in a school bus and wondering where their next meals and their next showers are coming from. Amber takes the best care she can of her little dog, Bobby Big Boy, or Thrice B for short. She volunteers to teach English to a group of Korean immigrant ladies by using the words and the beat of soul music, like the songs of Aretha Franklin. She does her best in school, and she's a good and loyal friend. And in return, her friends help her cope. Most of all, Amber deeply believes in God. But when she loses her mother, Amber feels completely overwhelmed and wonders if God really cares about her at all. The Queen of Optimism takes a detour into a pit of sadness from which there may be no return. And everyone wonders how they will ever get back their rock star of hope in the book by Matthew Quick. This fantasy story is called The Grim Legacy by Schusterman, but it's very different and unique. It has some interesting elements that I think you'll find fun to read. Since she's feeling like an outsider in her new school, Elizabeth is delighted when she gets a job at a page at the New York Circulating Material Repository. Now, this place is sort of like a library, but it's not like any library you've ever known. It checks out objects of historical value, and one collection in particular is intriguing. It's called the Grimm Collection, and it's kept in a secret room that holds magical objects from fairy tales, such as the 7-league boots, a mermaid's comb, and even the sinister mirror from Snow White. Elizabeth is excited after she proves herself and is given access to the collection. Soon, though, she discovers a secret about the items. They all actually have magical powers, just like they did in the original fairy tales. For example, the Snow White mirror talks back, and the table beset produces a feast in a blink of an eye. But then these magical items begin to disappear, and Elizabeth and her fellow pages set out on a dangerous quest to catch the thief, only to find themselves among the suspects. In The Grim Legacy by Schusterman. And this is an edgy contemporary story for high school readers called Please Ignore Vera Dietz by A.S. King. Vera Dietz knows a secret about Charlie Kahn's death, but she isn't going to tell anyone what she knows. Not yet, anyway. Charlie and Vera were best friends when they were kids. As they grew older, Vera felt herself falling in love with him. And then he betrayed her, all because of a lie. Jenny Flick wanted Charlie to like her, not Vera. So she told Charlie that Vera was spreading terrible rumors about his family all around school. And Charlie believed her, the biggest liar in school, over his best friend. Things were never the same between Charlie and Vera again, and under Jenny's evil influence, Charlie began to change for the worst. 5 months later, Charlie was dead. Is it okay to hate someone who died, who had been your best friend, someone you loved? Vera's not sure how she feels. She's got her own problems to deal with. But Charlie is still with her, in her heart and in her head, and his ghost is begging her to clear his name, to tell the world how and why he really died. Vera keeps wondering how long she can stay out of it. How long can she ignore the truth? Please Ignore Vera Dietz by A.S. King. Are you ready for some adventure on the high seas? If so, you'll want to try Heart of a Samurai by Margie, Pruess. Shipwrecked and starving on a tiny, deserted island far from his Japanese homeland, 14-year-old Manjiro is sure that he and his 4 fishing companions are going to die. But he's wrong. Just before they give up hope, they're saved by an American whaling ship that just happens to be passing by the island. The year is 1841, and though the Americans have reached and rescued Manjiro and his friends, there's much distrust among them. The Japanese consider the whalers barbarians, and likewise the whalers think the Japanese are godless cannibals. There's one open-minded person on board, though, and that's the captain of the ship. He and Manjiro form a bond, and he gives Manjiro a choice: stay with his countrymen and return to Japan, or go to America with him and become his adopted son. Manjiro picks the path of adventure and travels to America on the high seas with the captain. His journey takes him on exciting whale hunts until he finally reaches the shores of a brand new country. There he deals with even harder challenges, learning a new language, going to school, and coping with the many prejudices against him because he's Japanese, and possibly even falling in love. Will Manjiro ever return to his native land? If he does, will he be condemned as a traitor? And most of all, will he ever reach the status of samurai as he's always dreamed? Try Heart of a Samurai, which is actually based on a true story. This book is called Star-Crossed, and it's by Elizabeth C. Bunce. High in the snow-covered mountains of Livrenef, Celine Contraire is a lady-in-waiting for a young noblewoman named Marista Nemer. But although she appears to be a dedicated maid by night, she picks locks, steals jewels, forges documents, and uncovers secrets by day. Because Celine is not really a lady-in-waiting, she's Digger, a sneak thief on the run from the King's Inquisition, and she's hiding out in Mary's castle. And Digger can also detect and connect to magic, like the magic she realizes that Mary secretly possesses. Any form of magical ability is completely forbidden, and if Digger is discovered, she knows that she and Mary will be subject to the Inquisition's cruel torture. Posing as a lady-in-waiting isn't safe either, because the devious Lord Dahl has learned her secret, and he blackmails her so that she'll serve as his personal spy in the castle. What Digger discovers about Dahl, about the Nemer family, and even about her good friend, Lady Marista, could be the start of civil war in Livrenef. For a thief who swore she would never get involved, taking sides could be the most dangerous job yet in this fantasy called Star-Crossed by Elizabeth C. Bunce. Do you like cookies? Well, most people do. And I'm going to share a recipe with you now for some wonderful fortune cookies. It involves this book, Sweet Treats and Secret Crushes by Lisa Greenwald. You take 3 best friends, mix in a sudden blizzard that closes school, add a dash of Valentine's Day romance, and presto, you have some wonderful tasting homemade fortune cookies. Now you might be wondering how actual fortune cookies materialize from this so-called recipe. Well, here's how. 3 best friends, Olivia, Kate, and Georgia, decide to surprise all the snowbound neighbors in their apartment building with freshly made fortune cookies from a secret recipe, complete with creative fortunes written by the girls and placed inside, baked in Georgia's family's restaurant downstairs. The idea is to spread some happiness and maybe get everyone in the building to know each other better during this time when they're all housebound during the blizzard. But there's an ulterior motive too, because each of the girls likes the boy, and maybe, just maybe, the cookies will be a way for the girls to get to talk to them. The sweet treats might just be a way something that will lead to some Valentine's Day romance, despite the raging storm outside, in the book by Lisa Greenwald. And this is an eerie, supernatural story called Carnival of Lost Souls by Laura Quimby. Jack knows a few things about escape. He's a foster kid and he's been shuffled around from one home to another all of his life. But no matter where he ends up, he always brings along his interest in magic and his hero, Harry Houdini. When he finds a new home with a mysterious professor who seems to really like him, he thinks it might finally be permanent. But it's not, because the professor is not what he seems. The professor has a bargain with an evil and powerful underworld magician, the incredible Mussini. Jack is tricked into being the pawn that settles the professor's bargain. Before he knows it, Jack finds himself trapped in a strange new world called the Forest of the Dead, a place filled with liars, thieves, murderers, and monsters who want to be entertained. Jack finds himself forced to be in a weird traveling show that performs magic to amuse the dead. If he doesn't do it, and do it well, he will lose his own life and become one of them. Jack knows a few things about escape, and now he must find a way to use that knowledge to survive the Carnival of Lost Souls. Well, thank you for being with me today. It's been fun talking about the books. I hope you heard about one or two or more, as I said earlier, that you'll enjoy reading this summer. Come down to the library and sign up for summer reading, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.